welcome to WrestleWolf. I am Damian Gibson, and this is our WCW Reconsideration show. And joining me is the biggest thing to hit podcasting since the little old lady said, "Where's the beef?" It's the Enigma, Matthew.
Hello, and I'm excited. I was not asked about the naming it Reconsidering, but given that we've been watching this and given that all that you've heard about WCW for probably the last 25 years is through the WWF lens of this was absolute trash, it was total garbage, Ted Turner just paid a bunch of money to get Kevin Nash, and then like it beat us, but it never should have. And now we're watching it, and we're like, hey, it's actually like way better than what the WWF was doing in 1995, except for Bret Hart, obviously. As I said that, I realised I was a little bit wrong. But
there's some stuff at but I just peeked behind the curtain. I was like, I need another word for review, right? Because review's so boring, and so I just got my old trusty thesaurus, and that was the first sort of word that popped out at me. But I think it is warranted because we are kind of reconsidering the show. We're reconsidering it as older guys. Like we watched it when we were kids, and now we're older, and we do have this love for it. And it's kind of like, I think, as excited as both of us are, I think there is this trepidation of like, what if it is bad though? Like, and it really has been, it's been the history of WCW has been told through the eyes of the victors, right? Like it's that old saying of like history's written by the victors or the victor or whatever. That's what's happened. There was a Monday Night War, Vince won, and that's the story that you get. Even that Monday Night War documentary, which I really enjoyed, it was heavily weighted towards WWE. It's always told from the point of view of like WWE, this little family business, and big bad Ted Turner came along.
It was a family business that put every other wrestling promoter out of business
for 15 years beforehand. Yeah, like single-handedly, like that was the business model, was to put everyone else out of business, or at least take all the resources that they had to make themselves more powerful. And then when someone came along and did the same thing to them, they're still squealing about it.
And like that's what I think.
Years later, they're still banging on about it.
I think it'll be quite interesting to see as it goes on. Like I some of the things I remember are not good, but on the other hand, seeing things that are like, hey, this was really good. This show was still on the air for, according to the WWF version of things, essentially after 1997, it was garbage. So there's 4 years of rubbish. And I suspect that there's not 4 years of rubbish. But anyway, we should actually get into the if we could retitle it, it could be called WCW ... It's not shit ?
Well, I think Reconsideration is probably a bit more of an adult and YouTube / Apple podcast friendly way of saying that. But that's essentially what we mean. So we're up to episode 2, which was coming to us live, and Eric is at pains to tell us 117 times throughout the episode that it is coming to us live on September the 11th. Never forget. From the Knight Center, Miami, Florida. And our commentators are Eric Bischoff, Bobby Heenan, and literally my new favorite person in wrestling, Steve Mongo McNuggets.
We have the different feelings about Steve Mongo McMichael.
He's truly awful, but I kind of love him.
He referred to Hulk Hogan versus Lex Luger as the match of the century.
That's got the greatest match ever written all over it. Like if that was done now, they'd run with it. It'd be the name of 4 pay-per-views. So they basically kick off this episode returning to our favorite bit of last week outside of Pastamania. No Pastamania this episode, unfortunately. Although I did read a whole bunch of stuff about it during the week, and God, if it does come up again, I am loaded with facts. So we went back to the most confusing promo from last week, which is basically setting up the whole episode. Lex Luger and Hulk Hogan, they're going to have a championship match this week. And besides the fact that I still have no idea what was said watching this for a second time, I wanted to see how many times Hulk Hogan uses the word brother in a 2-minute segment, and I actually counted, and he uses it 11 times in 2 minutes.
That's fantastic. So he's using it once every 20 seconds.
Exactly.
A little bit more.
It's essentially the end of every sentence. Or halfway through, like it's punctuation. It's every time he takes a breath in, he says brother. It's like a mantra to him. It's like he can't it's his safe word. But essentially they were just letting us know why these two are having a championship match. But I'm not. Can you help me out? Like, is there why do they not like each other? What's going on?
Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. There's actually no reason. They do try and sort of tack on a little bit later that, like, you know, can we trust Lex Luger? But like, there's no reason not to trust him. It's fantastic.
Yeah, so when they come back from that replay of last week's most confusing promo in wrestling history, and that's saying something, they mentioned that Vader, who was part of the 4-man team, or the Goodies 4-man team at Fall Brawl, which is coming up this Sunday, has gone AWOL. And I wrote down, like, in my notes, riff on this, and then I thought, maybe not, because knowing wrestlers, it can be something really bad, you know, like he was in rehab or something like that. And I don't want to spend 10 minutes of a podcast going, oh, what a loser's gone AWOL. And it was, you know, he was in a car accident or something.
Well, that's the next 2 episodes, because the next episode of our podcast will be Fall Brawl. There is a lot of military puns going on. Because there's a War Games.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think of it as like a get it? Oh, right.
Yeah. So something potentially personally catastrophic has happened to Vader, and they're like, he's gone Sergeant Vader's AWOL.
Oh my God. We were sort of joking around about whether we would see Sabu or not, and we do. Sabu comes flying out of the old WCW Monday Nitro. What would you call that? It's like a square. Like it's that's the stage setup that they had for quite a while, from what I can remember. But it's just sort of, it's iconic, but there's nothing really to it. It's just sort of lighting rigging, isn't it?
It looks cool though. Like, I quite like it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not saying it's awful. It's just, it's like very little effort's been put into it, but it's like, oh yeah, like it just even that, I'm like, oh God, I remember watching, because you see so many wrestlers come through that. I don't know. It's not an arch. It's not I don't even know.
Let's just call it the square.
The square. Even that brought back warm and bubbly memories of watching Nitro. Sabu was up against Alex Wright, who will be a featured, well, not featured, but he'll be a consistent player for
the next 6 years.
Yeah, he's there right till the end, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. I always thought Alex Wright was because he sort of kicks off a little bit later when there's that sort of cruiserweight / mid-card, I don't know, gamut of, there's about 10 or 15 really good wrestlers all sort of going, you know, in the mid-card with Jericho and Eddie Guerrero. And I always sort of associate him with that. But he's, look, like from this match, I mean, it is kind of that cruiser. You can see that Eric Bischoff has got that opening match, like fast, exciting, paced idea that eventually becomes the cruiserweights. But yeah, this match was good. I mean, but it only went for 3 and a bit minutes.
Well, it looked like first of all, Sabu wrestles like concussions don't exist.
Yes.
And I know it's 1995, but they did know that smacking your head at things as hard as possible wasn't good. And I'm pretty sure he's just straight up injured himself about a minute into the match or 30 seconds into the match.
It did look like it, didn't it? Yeah.
Like, it's not him selling. He just looks like he's hurt himself. Like, there's a moment where he throws himself into the guardrail, like looks like he's broken. Everyone's standing up around him except for one quite obese man who's directly in front of him, so they can't frame him out, and everyone's going crazy, and this man's looking down at him and just speaking an unbroken series of words. And by God, what I would give to know what that man was saying to Sabu.
I noticed when Sabu came out, he kept pointing at the rafters. Do we know what that is? Is that a usual? I have no.
Yeah, that's a usual
ECW
Sabu thing.
reference. Like I've never watched any ECW, so
I think it's a bit of like a Sheik thing. Like I think I could be wrong about that because he sort of plays off that, being related to the Sheik.
Yeah.
He's always done that.
Okay.
And like I was watching it and I'm like, in a vacuum in 1995, if you were to watch this, you just like this guy against Hulk Hogan. If you're going to do these like sort of, very 1995 evil foreign heel things, like this guy's money. He looks like he's covered in scars.
Yeah.
He wrestles like a lunatic. He's like obviously not particularly concerned about his own well-being. And like that could have been an amazing program, except for the fact that outside of the ring, he was a maniac who was not concerned about his own well-being.
Right. Like it wasn't just a clever gimmick.
Yeah, like that. There could have been serious money in Sabu, and like it's almost surprising that that he never sort of was in a top program, even briefly, in either WCW or WWF.
Yeah, considering when you sort of look back and think of the amount, the amount of sort of lunatics that have been top guys, the Ultimate Warrior springs immediately to mind. Yeah, that is strange. That I don't know. For some wrestlers, they can't be bothered, and others they,
Yeah,
that is strange. Sabu gets the win, then goes and gets Alex Wright, puts him on a table, and does a move called an Arabian press, which is essentially like a sort of diving press off the top rope. But he lawn darts into Alex Wright. It's not the usual sort of arc. Like when someone will jump off the top rope and sort of try and get some air to cushion the blow a little bit. He like dives directly at Alex Wright, like in a downward trajectory motion towards, like it really looks like it would hurt really, really bad, that spot.
I mean, Sabu, whose real name is Terry, is 55 years old right now. And like, it's amazing that he is alive and able to walk at 55, given the way he treated his body.
Well, the thing that I found really interesting about this as well is that the match is then reversed. Like even though the match is over, Sabu is disqualified from a match that's already happened, and the win is awarded to Alex Wright.
I've never seen this happen before, but also it makes me think that like there is a WCW rulebook. And this is what WCW is criticized for. Like they're just like, hey, strictly by the rules, you can't, attack your opponent after the match. The decision's reversed. It counts as a loss for you.
I like it.
It's kind of cool. Like it's like, I think it's kind of cool. I sort of wondered if like, that was the same thing in boxing. Like you couldn't just, belt your opponent after, the match.
No, you would lose points. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, I thought it pretty cool.
Yeah, unique. I really liked it. I just was like, I haven't seen this before, but yeah, really was like cool. And then it also adds an element of danger for the heels. Like they have to work around those rules.
Yeah,
I really like that a lot. After this, we had, and we're going to get, dude. We're going to talk about this particular dynamic so much. We've got an interview in the ring. Mean Gene calls out Ric Flair. I was about to call him Eric Flair for a second.
Another one of his disappointing sons.
And then, Rick comes to the ring, and the first half of this promo is about Arn Anderson, who he will be taking on at Fall Brawl, and a match that I'm very much looking forward to covering.
Where he runs Arn Anderson down, and given all that everyone listening to this knows about Ric Flair, which is there's probably two things that you know about Ric Flair. One, that he's probably one of the greatest wrestlers of all time.
Mm-hmm.
The second is that you're lucky you were never married to or sired by Ric Flair, as he runs Arn Anderson down for calling his wife and children.
Yeah.
He's like, you should be at the bar with me, but you're calling your wife to check in on your young child.
What a loser. What a horrible person Arn Anderson is. Checking in on his family.
It's a 45-year-old man being like...
Yeah, that's the other thing as well. It's not like they're two 22-year-olds. They're like 60, It's like Rick is still like, just come and hang out, dude. What is wrong with you? Like, man, we're in Miami,
And Arn Anderson, who I believe has always looked about 47 years old.
Yeah, he looked like that when he was 12.
And he looks like it now, to be fair. He's not aged back or forwards. He's just born 47.
I have heard him joke about how this is the best he's ever looked. He looks exactly the same as he always has, but this is the best that he's ever looked. Then this, and I was hoping that you could explain this to me, because I don't know what is going on. Lex Luger comes out to ruin another promo for the second week in a row and just confuse me. I feel like this is going to be a recurring theme of anytime Lex Luger comes out, I don't know what's going on. Lex Luger comes out, Ric Flair all of a sudden stops talking about Arn Anderson, talks about, basically just drools over Lex Luger, and then says that Lex Luger is there because of Hulk Hogan, and then the rest of the promo is about Hulk Hogan.
So I have one note on this promo, and it is, why did Lex Luger wander out in his underwear during a Ric Flair promo?
I don't know. The promo takes, there is a severe the handbrake goes on severely. It just does a complete U-turn, and it's all about the Hulkster. And I know that they're trying to weave in the story, it's to build up, it's like, well, Rick, go out and build up your match, but also, we'll send, how I was saying in the last episode, there is a feeling that this was made up on the spot, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. This feels like someone at Gorilla was like, we've got 5 minutes, Rick, get out there, talk about Arn Anderson, and Lex, you come out as well, and we'll talk about tonight's match. Go. And they've got nothing to work with whatsoever.
It definitely seems, at the very least, Ric Flair didn't know that Lex Luger was coming out.
No, not at all. And then there's this thing with Ric Flair, especially this Nitro period of Ric Flair, where for someone who's meant to be the style and profile and, that guy, he comes across like he's got an acquired brain injury at times. You know what I mean? Because he's just screaming all the time, it's sort of hard to, I don't get this is a suave, cool, sophisticated, rich guy. I get, this guy is insane.
Yeah.
Next up, we were hoping that we wouldn't see much of Wallstreet. And not only do we get a match with Wallstreet, but he's renamed himself and he's now VK Wallstreet. And for anyone who is an AEW watcher, you might be getting some pangs of familiarity, because this is an inside Vince McMahon joke. Vincent Kennedy Wallstreet is what he was named after.
And I am just as interested in this as I am in AEW's version.
Well, as he comes out, there wasn't really much to talk about when it comes to this match, but
he enters first. I have a few notes about this, but he enters to actual silence.
Yeah, he doesn't have any music or anything like that. So poor IRS is getting buried here. And it's VK Wallstreet. You've got to make an appointment to see him, says Bobby the Brain. And then Eric Bischoff goes, "Who is this guy? Like, what is he?" And then Bobby the Brain Heenan says the prophetic words of, "You better be careful. He'll buy this program and throw you off it." And I was like, "Wow, talk about foreshadowing."
Well,
7 years in advance.
And this actually is a historic match because during it, we get the first Bischoff spoiler for Raw.
Yes, well, that was my big note of like, and I like even watching it now, and there's no stakes to it. I still can't believe he's doing it. When I hear him doing it, I'm like, oh man, that's ballsy. Like that is talk about letting the opposition know that you're there. Like unbelievable. It's 3 weeks old. What is he like? Did you write down what he said at all? It's like, don't.
I didn't write down what he said, but it was don't bother turning over.
Yeah, they taped it 3 weeks ago, and it's like some kid versus a guy who looks like he just walked out of a YMCA or something along those lines. Is the main event. So, who do you reckon he was talking about? I wonder who the main event was.
We could have checked that.
Oh well, we're not here about WWE.
It was really. We just had a Ric Flair promo about what arguably could be conceived as one of the most personal matchups. Flair Anderson, they've been traveling for 15 years. They're finally going to wrestle. It's all blown up. Then we've got Sting, who's your big mid card face, versus this new guy that at least you're trying to sort of build. As the Ric Flair promo talked about Hulk Hogan. The commentators spend the whole match talking about Hulk Hogan, and it is literally like the Simpsons thing. Like when Hulk Hogan isn't on screen, people should be asking, "Where's Hulk Hogan?"
Yeah. Well, the only other thing that I noticed while this was going on is that for some reason, and I assume this is the early beginnings of having celebrities in the audience, because Eric Bischoff mentions there's a couple of Miami Dolphins in the audience, and Mongo says, "Yeah, Ray White is here," like who I assume is some famous footballer from the time. And then Bobby the Brain says, "Is his brother Barry, like Barry White?" And Mongo says, "Does it matter?" Like just completely, there's no yes and at all. Just completely shuts him down. No. No improv skills whatsoever. And Bobby the Brain, like defeated, says, "No, it doesn't matter." It was my favorite moment of the whole episode. Because I feel like you could, like, it's another Simpsons meme of like, there's the exact moment where his heart broke. Where his heart breaks. That's the exact moment where Bobby the Brain goes to Eric afterwards and says, "We cannot keep Mongo on commentary."
Yep.
Sting wins this with the Stinger Splash. And yeah, all is right with the world. Next up, we had the match that we were both looking forward to seeing.
Hold on. Next up, we have a promo for WCW Saturday Night that has, first of all, the debut of Disco Inferno.
I did notice that.
But also has a match, Big Bubba versus Dave Sullivan and the Rabbit. Yeah. And it's this guy called Dave Sullivan who's holding a rabbit. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And so I looked it up. Anyway, Dave Sullivan looks a lot like Kevin Sullivan. They're unrelated. Dave Sullivan played the dyslexic brother of Kevin Sullivan, who regularly, like his dyslexia manifests itself by him pronouncing his name Dave as Evad.
Oh my God.
And this was not a throwaway match. This was a feud. Big Bubba hated Dave Sullivan's pet rabbit because he was dyslexic, so that meant he obviously had like quite serious brain injury and he walks around with his pet rabbit. But Big Bubba's allergic to rabbits. And Dave would and Big Bubba would wrestle wearing a face mask.
Oh my God.
And Dave would win the matches by pulling his face mask down, which would send Big Bubba into fits.
That is amazing. I did notice that and was like, oh, I don't know. Is that anything? I'm glad you looked into it because we've got to start doing a Saturday night show just so we can talk about these matches. That's amazing.
You can give me the responsibility of sort of, jobbers of the week.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because I read, I spent so much time reading about Dave Sullivan. Anyway, he retired. He's now he's a football coach.
Oh, that's great. It genuinely makes me happy when a wrestler is just doing a normal job, like, and is fine. Like, seriously, because there's so many bad stories. Like, good, awesome football coach, alive, not on drugs and not an alcoholic. That's rad.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Yes. So next up we had Scott Norton versus Macho Man Randy Savage. And the main thing that was sort of being got across here was, one, we're going to have a Scott Norton versus Mongo feud. That's exciting. And two, Scott Norton essentially does a Bane to Batman, to Macho Man's Batman, and breaks Macho Man's back.
And casually mentioned before he does this is Scott Norton is a man who's crippled a lot of people in Japan, which I don't think, it's just a really strange thing to say, but it's also such lazy storytelling.
Yeah, I mean it is, but
he did it in Japan.
But it does, it is, but it also, there is some color, like that just wouldn't happen. Like, I don't know. I mean, yes, it is. It's extremely lazy, but at least it's something. It gives you
it is storytelling.
It gives you some storytelling. So this ends with the Dungeon of Doom. Now, I couldn't quite tell whether like Macho Man won first or the dungeon got out there, and that's how Macho won. But essentially,
so he won because of the interference.
Yeah, right. And then
by pinfall.
Yeah, and so this was Dungeon of Doom's. They get involved a lot this evening. So they come out. Macho gets the win. I
think we need to first of all, wrestling Macho Man Randy Savage is incredible because, like, I don't remember Scott Norton at all, but Macho makes him look great.
Yeah,
but then he wins because John Tenta falls on Scott Norton, and Scott Norton can't get up. So, like, there's two people holding down Scott Norton as Macho Man pins him. And as I was watching that, I was like, this would be fine if 15 minutes ago you didn't just disqualify Sabu for something he did outside of the match. Now you're like, oh, look, we can have an obese man collapse on you, and like, just that's within the rules. It's not specifically put into the rule book.
No,
that you can't have this. It was an incredible flouting of the rules that they'd set themselves.
Well, Macho Man got the win, and Dungeon of Doom got inside, Macho Man's head. I think there's meant to be this whole, which doesn't get put across that well. There is a sort of closing promo that really shoves it down your throat. But I think there's meant to be this idea of like the main good guys are confused. They don't know who to trust. They don't know who, I think that's meant to be the main sort of takeaway from all the, sort of buttons on this episode. But I didn't really quite get that until the very end of the episode.
They definitely told you at the end.
Well, yeah, you didn't have a choice but to know. It's like, have we been too subtle? Let's go. So we had the world title match between Hulk and Lex, and there isn't really a huge amount to say about their actual match, as you could imagine.
I kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm not saying
I was not expecting it. I was like, when he referred to it as the greatest match of the century, I was like, that's a joke, but it was. No, my note is I actually kind of enjoyed this match. It was fine. you forget that Hulk Hogan's actually not as comically bad as you sort of think that he is.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just of its time, right? I mean, and the other thing as well is that these guys are huge. They're not your Adam Cole. They're not a 5'10" flippy guy. Like they're gonna just bash into each other, and that's cool. Like there's there's nothing wrong with that.
So I think that something notable that comes up is that Bischoff says that they're just sitting around ragging the WWF, and he goes, "The WWF World Champion is a guy who never made it past mid-card status here in WCW.
Yeah.
That man is Kevin Nash."
Yeah, it is.
He ends up being relatively important in the success of WCW.
Yeah, it's pretty. There's a lot. I mean, I'm really enjoying the calling out of this kind of stuff. You know, like that they talk about WW, like they just say the name WWF. Like there seems to be this sort of gentleman's agreement of what's going on now, where no one mentions the other one's name, or like. But these guys are just flat out like WWF. Lex Luger was in WWF 9 days ago. Like Kevin Nash is shit. Don't watch Raw. Like it's pretty brazen. But when you kind of think about, like, I mean, we're joking about it sort of, but when you think about what has happened to, like, a lot of these guys would have been in territories where WWF would have come along and ruined that territory. So there probably is quite a bit of bad blood towards Vince.
That's a good point. I didn't even think that.
And that these guys are essentially sort of see themselves as the last bastion of territory wrestling, because there's all the history of NWA and all that sort of stuff. So I think it was deeply personal for a lot. Maybe not for Hulk and Macho Man, but for a lot of other people on the roster, definitely.
Absolutely.
So we had the Dungeon of Doom run in again in this match.
Again.
Yes.
Yeah. And Hulk Hogan immediately dispatches them. If the Dungeon of Doom don't win at a Fall Brawl, this is insane booking, because it is literally just they are constantly dispatched by Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, almost single-handedly.
And that's why, like, the next part of this, where they all sort of Macho Man, Sting, Hulk Hogan all argue about who should take the spot of Vader. Like, it's why bother? Just have Hulk Hogan do it. He can defeat them. But I was also like, I timed this. I went back. So there's 3 minutes and 20 seconds where everyone talks, like Sting, Macho, Lex all talk about Lex Luger taking Vader's spot.
Yeah.
And then Hulk Hogan grabs the mic and goes, "Let me put this together. Are you saying we should let Lex Luger take Vader's spot in War Games?"
Yeah,
after 3 minutes and 20 seconds.
He hadn't had his Hulkaroos that day, so he was a little slow. What I enjoyed about, I mean, I loved all of this promo. It's like this. This is the kind of stuff that I want to see in wrestling. Just guys yelling, talking over the top of each other, all kind of saying the same thing, but in slightly different ways for minutes on end. But what I did enjoy is that Sting and Luger have history previously from when Luger was in WCW and they'd been tag team partners and stuff like that. But if you had just started watching from Nitro like we have, there's no mention of that at all. And so Sting just out of nowhere, like, because Hulk and Macho Man are like, we hate Lex Luger, we don't trust Lex Luger, and Sting's like, I think he should be on our team. I just was like, what? And then they get turned around so quickly. I mean, Macho Man puts up a little bit of resistance, but after like 2 minutes, Hulk's like, all right. I mean, he kind of like says, well, like, if you betray my trust on Sunday, there'll be trouble.
This is a running theme of WCW. Sting trusting people who eventually betray him. I know it's a running theme of wrestling, but like Sting is very unique in consistently trusting the wrong person.
Yeah, but I think that's why his later character development works so well, right? Because he's screwed over so often. He's like, hey, man, like the little Stingers want to see Lex Luger on the team. Let's do it for them, huh? And yeah, he's just constantly disappointed by all these other arseholes on the roster. So this is essentially, it's all setting up to the main event at Fall Brawl 95, which is a War Games stipulation between the Dungeon of Doom and, well, the four guys that we just spoke about. Lex Luger's now on the team, Sting, Macho Man, Hulk Hogan. And the win, if the goodies win, Hulk Hogan gets 5 minutes with Kevin Sullivan or the Taskmaster to himself.
It's very sort of 5 minutes in the closet.
I know, right? Yeah, if I win, you have to come and have a milkshake with me. That's what he means, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Or at the very least, a milkshake. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm really excited to do. I'm actually genuinely excited to do Fall Brawl. Yeah, well, we can probably wrap that up there, man. I genuinely really enjoy watching these and doing the episode. I'm having a little bit of difficulty with my laptop at the moment, so if you hear me sort of stopping and starting a little bit, that's what that is. I'm sorry. So yeah, we can leave that there. People listening to this already, which is great. If you're liking it, tell people about it. If you're an old WCW fan, pass it on to other people who you think might like it. You can find us on the socials. We're WrestleWolfPod on everything. You can write to us at WrestleWolfPodcast@gmail. Rate and review us. And yeah, we'll be back with the next episode, which will be Fall Brawl 95.
Awesome.
See you, man.
We really do need a sign out, hey?
We do need something. We'll find something along the way that we can steal from one of these guys.
Yep.
Like look after your allergies or something, It's maybe something to take from this week.
Well, on the subject of allergies, the Steve Mongo McMichaels' dog is dressed up in a sombrero. So this is clearly a thing that's going to happen.
Yeah, Mongo Dog Watch. He's he's like a Mexican dog or something.
Yeah, it's exceptionally strange.
But we love it, and we'll be back with
see you next week
for Fall Brawl 95. See ya.